In the next hour on Proof Positive, 3 extraordinary cases, 3 scientific tests. Gary Lowry says he's been victimized for more than 30 years by a series of alien abductions, and he claims he has the physical evidence to prove it. But will the evidence test positive when subjected to scientific analysis? In Florida, 30 firefighters are convinced their fire station is haunted. Are these photographs of spirit orbs actual evidence of a ghost? They're known as remote viewers. They use a psychic energy to pinpoint the location of a designated target that could be anywhere in the world. 3 stories of the paranormal, 3 scientific investigations. Only one will be judged proof positive. Which one do you think it will be? Gary Lowry, a retired arson investigator, claims that for more than 30 years, he has been an unwilling victim of the phenomenon known as alien abduction. And Gary has something most abductees don't have: physical evidence that can be analyzed. It began when Gary Lowry was just 16. He and his brother Tom and a few friends took a night hike near Mount Shasta in California.
There was this blue light shining from the sky, and the blue light shined on us. And, you know, at first when it shined on us, you know, I could feel it.
I thought it was a helicopter at first, that's what I thought, but there was no noise. At a distance, you know, when it was far away.
We all turned around and there was this football-shaped object that covered up the stars as it was coming down. It had a blue light over on one side of it that was like a searchlight moving from side to side. I think it had like a small red light or red underneath. I don't know, it was real dim. We all jumped up and said, "They're going to eat us." And everybody basically
took off
running.
For their lives, basically.
For their lives.
This was just the start of what Gary says has become a never-ending cycle of abduction-related experiences.
And then I woke up and there was some holes in me.
Okay, and you didn't have anything like this before you went to bed?
No.
Today, 30 years later, Gary undergoes regular exams with Dr. Roger Lear, who is known for his work with abductees. Lear has investigated hundreds of cases, but he finds Gary's unique.
Yes, there was pain.
I'm 100% in agreement with the facts presented that would make Gary's case so deeply involved in a phenomena that is very unexplainable.
What makes Gary's case so compelling is his thorough documentation. Over the years, Gary has utilized the skills gained during 11 years as an arson investigator to compile meticulous records, conduct experiments, and whenever possible, gather physical evidence.
I woke up one night and I saw the door handles on the closet were moving, and a blue light shined out of there. And then a light turned on and there was 2 men in the closet. I got up, checked the closet, nobody's there. Told my wife about it. She said, "You were just dreaming." And so I thought, I'm going to prove to her that somebody's in there. So basically what I did was I took a towel and I took some heavy-duty aluminum foil. And then I took the towel and I placed it in the closet with the aluminum foil face down. And about 2 weeks later, we got some tracks in it.
The footprints matched no one living in the Lowry home. Dr. Lear, who is trained in podiatry, believes the prints were not produced by a human being.
The casts are representative of a foot which is small in stature and narrow across the arch. The toe areas seem to be so that there may be 3 or maybe 4 toes, certainly not a 5-toed foot. The resultant cast would indicate that we're dealing something that's fairly lightweight, maybe less than 100 pounds.
As the encounters continued, Gary decided to move, hoping that his experiences might be more related to his location than to him personally.
I've moved probably 4 or 5 times, and within three days to a week, they're usually there. They don't come when it's really cold. If it's a rainy night or a very cold night, they don't show up. But you still aren't getting rest from that, because the fact is, you're thinking, will they come? Will this happen tonight?
With changes of environment came new evidence.
I had a fairly new watch at the time, and I placed it on my nightstand and went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up and it was gone. We tore the house up, looked everywhere for it. I eventually had to buy a new watch. Probably about 2 weeks later, we found this watch underneath the bed with the clasp clasped together and around the leg of the bed, like somebody had placed it there.
The watch was dusted with a powdery residue, somewhat similar to a substance Gary would later find on the walls of his bedroom.
Dr. Lear came up to my house, and we had a black light, and we shined it in our bedroom. It looked like something had dripped on the wall and ran down the wall, and it was fluorescent under the black light. You couldn't see it with your eye. Dr. Lear scraped it with either a knife or a razor blade, and he collected those samples.
Gary continued to collect evidence. At one point, he took soil samples around his house from a spot where he believed a form of alien craft might have landed.
There was a boat-shaped print on the ground, on the grass. It killed all the grass, and there was like a landing print there where a landing gear had went down. It had 2 landing gear in the back and 1 in the front.
Next came the discovery of what Gary believes is an implant, a wire-type material he found embedded into the surface of his hand.
It was in this hand, and it was basically about right here. I tried to get it off, and it wouldn't come off my hand, so I got a magnifying glass, and it had wires. It was made up of like 30 wires or more, just in a ball, and then some of them were poking down into the skin. About 2 days later, it fell off, and then we sent it to a guy, and he took some pictures of it with a magnifying glass, and it was some type of wires, is what they told me.
Most curious of all are tiny puncture marks and lesions that have frequently appeared on Gary's legs, chest, and arms.
Feels like there's something underneath there, doesn't it?
To me, it does. It looks like about 5 holes is what it looked like to me.
Yeah, they appear to be maybe a line of small puncture marks. There was no chance that you could have rubbed up against anything during the night? No sharp objects around the bed or anything like that?
Nope.
Gary called me and told me that he had what appeared to be injection marks on the skin. At that same time, he said that he was exuding some kind of a viscous liquid from his skin that smelled so badly that his wife was offended by the odor. I said, please, take some, gauze and, wipe some of this viscous or oily material off into the gauze. And we do have those samples, and these were taken from his forehead.
They're taking pieces of my life that can never be replaced. These things are coming and doing things to you, and then your peers or the jury, they don't want to believe you that something's happening to you. And so not only do you have to suffer the crime, but you have to suffer the indignation of these people that are saying, oh, you caused it on yourself, it's something in your own mind. It's not right, it's not fair, you don't agree to it, and there's no way that you can stop it.
It hasn't been any easier on Gary's family.
You know, as the mother, it's my job, you know, to make sure everybody's safe and happy. And this is just something that I have no control over. There's nothing I can do to, you know, stop it or, you know, make him feel better in any way.
That's exactly like a dream that's happening to you, but it's one that you can't wake up from. You know, and it makes you feel crazy at times. Some people out there might care and some might not. And if, you know, they don't care, then obviously they don't want to find out or really want to understand what's really going on.
Strange fluorescent scrapings, powdery residue, footprints, a tiny wire-like implant, soil samples, an oily, viscous liquid. Of these items collected by Gary Lowry, 3 were determined to have significant characteristics required for quantifiable testing. The evidence has been turned over to SEAL Laboratories in Southern California for analysis by means of an electron microscope and an infrared spectroscope.
Once we determine the elements and the ratios of the elements, then we can determine what kind of possible sources that sample may have come from.
What will the lab tests reveal? Is Gary Lowry's evidence proof of an alien abduction? Or will we find a more earthly explanation? You'll find out at the end of the hour. There are certain people you'd never expect to believe in ghosts, like a group of more than 30 firefighters in Florida. They're convinced their station is haunted, and they even have evidence. Photographs of ghostly orbs.
I believe 100% that this station has a ghost. The stories I've heard could definitely creep you out.
I was sleeping here in the bed. I heard banging in the kitchen. I knew nobody was up because I was the last person in bed because I was putting a report in. And I heard something come down the hall and come in here, and it stopped right here. It was a black shadow. And I was like, you know, kind of like, you know, what am I looking at, you know?
Greg May's encounter with a spirit is typical of what's been occurring inside one of the oldest fire stations in Broward County.
Felt the temperature drop on the back of my neck about 30 degrees.
I would sit up and the television would turn on by itself.
I see something walk across the hallway and I said, there's no way I just saw that. Sat here, it came back, and the door closed.
I was laying in this bed and I had a book. I was studying, fell asleep while I was studying, and I had the blankets pulled all the way up. And I awoke to find the blankets being pulled underneath just like this. I pulled them back, and I looked under the bed, and there was nobody there.
He said that it's lucky the light was on in the room, or he wouldn't have gone screaming from that room in terror.
What makes these sightings so credible is the sheer number of firefighters claiming to have encountered a ghost.
Roughly, I'd say we have 30 firefighters that have had very good, detailed encounters with unexplained activity.
I heard a noise from the kitchen. It sounded just like a fork falling into the sink. I look in there and there's nothing in the sink and my dishes are all still up there.
I hear a voice saying, "Come here, come here."
Something kind of passed through my body.
Many of the ghost sightings have taken place late at night in the bedrooms.
I was sleeping in my bed. My partner was sleeping in this bed. He had his eyes open and he's watching the doorway, and along comes this big black figure, a big black shadow. And he says it walks right here, it stands in the doorway, and it stands over the foot of my bed. And then he says it backs up, and then it walks down the hallway.
Sometimes when I sit at my desk and I'd be sitting there doing my paperwork and the door, you know, sometimes the door will swing open, which is completely normal, except that it closes too. And there's no wind.
Greg May, my partner that day on Rescue 8, was sleeping over in that bed, and I was sleeping here. About 3 o'clock, I look over, and everything here is being rattled, basically like that. You know, my radio's knocked over, the keys, the alarm clock. So I look over and I see right here like a silhouette. And I start yelling, "Hey, Greg, Greg." And he goes, "What?" I go, "You sleepwalking?" He goes, "No." I go, "Well, the ghost is in the room."
It seems clear something very unusual is happening in the fire station. But if there is a ghost, who is it?
We've had several firefighters that have actually seen an image of a male, and it fits the description of a firefighter that was unfortunately and tragically killed on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, 1940.
The firefighter in question was named Robert Knight. He was just 28 years old and had been on the job for only 11 days when he was electrocuted at the scene of a fire. Once the story started coming out, the South Florida Ghost Team, led by Sean Jones, contacted the station and began to investigate.
When we first went into the fire station and we started interviewing the firemen one by one, they had some pretty interesting stories to tell. Okay, here's what we're gonna do, guys.
The team continues to conduct periodic investigations to document the paranormal activity.
This is a digital thermometer. It shoots an infrared beam out the front.
I have a standard digital camera. I have my regular video camera. We've captured a lot of orbs in the firehouse.
Orbs. Some say they're the energy emitted by a spirit. Usually not seen by the naked eye, they have been photographed or videotaped. The orbs featured here were captured by Sean Jones and her team.
In the hallway at the fire station, there was a bright orb just under the light on the ceiling in the hallway. A lot of times you would step in that hallway and you could just feel the energy in that hallway and the hair starts standing up.
The ghost hunters also have digital recordings.
There was 2 tabs right there.
That they believe are voices from beyond.
Make your presence known to us. At the fire station, we've done several recordings and we've gotten several responses.
Let us know something or answer it.
Again, what is your name? The main one that we got is where I asked the question, why are you here? Why are you at the fire station? The response that I got, I'm going to play for you now. It says, what it says is, because I'm not supposed to go. So let's see if you can make that out. Ready? Did you catch that? One more time. We got a response to our question, a direct answer. Why are you here? Because I'm not supposed to go.
So is it possible that the ghost of Robert Knight is haunting Fire Station 8? With the voice recordings, photographs, and all the eyewitness accounts, the answer seems clear.
Both men and women on the job from all walks of life, they're all stand-up people. They go into burning buildings when everyone else is running out. There's no need to make up stories. I believe the men and women of this firehouse 100% when they say that there's a ghost.
A review of the audio recordings determined they were too short and too distorted to be conclusively analyzed. The only tangible evidence that can be subjected to scientific testing is the photos of the orbs taken by Sean Jones and her team. The images will be turned over to Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, California, for detailed computer analysis.
It's a very interesting anomaly. It's not camera flare, it's not lens flare.
What will the tests reveal? Will this case be judged proof positive? We'll find out later in the show. These people appear to be sleeping. In fact, they are remote viewing, connecting to a person, place, or thing they've been instructed to psychically locate.
I saw the target and she had short blonde hair and it appeared to be back.
I felt that the beacon was moving about 80% of the time. My feeling of what the target was doing was constant motion, this blissful state of weaving and moving, sort of like an amusement park ride.
Imagine being able to visualize in your mind actual events that are taking place hundreds of miles away. David Morehouse, a former CIA agent, believes anyone can do it. He's perfected a psychic spying technique called remote viewing, and he says he can generate the evidence to back up his claims.
Exactly what remote viewing is allowing someone to do is to see persons, places, or things distant in space-time. And to gather information about that and to be able to describe that in very interesting and very wonderful terms.
In the 1980s, David Morehouse was a commander in the Army Rangers. During a training mission in the Middle East, he was wounded in the head. While recovering, he discovered he had apparent psychic powers. It earned him reassignment to a classified unit of the CIA.
I was sent to a special access program codenamed Sunstreak at that time and trained to become one of America's top secret psychic spies called remote viewers. Every day that we came to work, we worked a rogues gallery of targets. It was a constant barrage of things that were ugly and sinister and moving targets.
As part of a remote viewing team, Morehouse worked hundreds of cases, from searching for a Soviet jet that crashed in a jungle carrying an atomic bomb, to tracking suspected double agents. His most famous case was helping to determine the cause of the 1989 Pan Am 103 crash over Lockerbie, Scotland.
The rumors are that the CIA spent around $50 million to continue to pay for the scientific research and development of coordinate remote viewing.
Much of that money went to funding a program at Stanford University that was headed up by this man, physicist Russell Targ.
Remote viewing is very easy to do. It's like a musical ability. There will, of course, be psychic superstars just as there are musical prodigies. But what pleased us very much is that we were able to train to a greater or lesser extent almost everyone who came into our laboratory.
Morehouse shares the notion that anyone can be taught remote viewing. So in 1991, he left the CIA and later developed a remote viewing training program that has attracted nearly 11,000 recruits.
Now, we don't make any pretense that it is 100% accurate. We recognize that it has its limitations, but it is also a tremendous tool that allows us to see something distant in space-time and come back with a very accurate picture of what is there.
We selected 12 remote viewers from throughout the United States and Canada and flew them to Los Angeles. Each of the viewers has undergone extended training with Morehouse. They've been told nothing about their task in advance.
I have every expectation when given the mission that they will do exactly what they have been asked to do.
The remote viewers are a diverse group, but they all share the same confidence in their skills. Ted Macy is a real estate broker from Atlanta, Georgia.
If it's a defined target, then we can get there. You collect as much information as you can. Sometimes you get one small piece, and another time you might get 100 different pieces.
Nicole Whitney is a radio talk show host in Vancouver, Canada.
I don't think there's anything that's a hard target, actually. If you can get to any place in time and space using this, how can anywhere be hard to get to?
Rommel Lozano works as a psychiatric counselor in San Diego, California.
It's something that I'm experiencing myself. And then also, it's something that I know that I'm watching it at the same time.
Before the test begins, Morehouse distributes a tasking sheet. The instructions are brief and to the point.
Okay, welcome to target tasking number 1. And your special instructions for this particular target. It is a beacon target, and the beacon can be located anywhere. You have 1 hour to complete the tasking and 30 minutes to prepare a written summary with sketches. Describe the beacon physically, describe the activities of the beacon, and describe the location of the beacon.
The beacon is the designated target, the person the viewers have been instructed to locate and describe. The location of the beacon can be anywhere in the world. For our test, the beacon is 25-year-old Jennifer Lehman.
I don't think that they'll be able to read my thoughts. I don't think they'll be able to even know where I'm at. I'm so skeptical.
The test begins. For the next hour, the beacon will drive a predetermined route through Los Angeles. Miles away, the remote viewers begin their process, unaware that the beacon is in the same city.
It's much more difficult for the viewers if the beacon is moving, because it's not a stationary piece of scenery for them. It's things moving by, and they're essentially looking through the eyes of the beacon. So they're looking and seeing what the beacon is seeing.
Each viewer uses his or her own technique to reach a meditative state. This allows them to focus their psychic energies to hone in on the energy emanating from the beacon. At the end of the hour, they will have 30 minutes to write their summaries. The remote viewers do not talk or share information at any time. Sergeant Rhett Price of the California Highway Patrol will observe the testing. He's interested to see if remote viewing can be used in police work.
There's always going to be skepticism in the law enforcement community when it comes to new things that are not traditional. We look at things in black and white, and either you can do it or you can't, and we don't look beyond to any other methodologies to help us solve cases or mysteries or whatever you want to call them.
Right from the start on, I know that there is this vibrational energy of moving up and down.
I saw a fountain that had a number of water spouts coming up and popping up into the air.
For this target, I definitely got a sense that it was close. It felt like she was on a bike the whole time. And then all of a sudden there was this dark trail that I was into, and then I saw this tunnel of light.
We're looking for colors, we're looking for textures, we're looking for dimensionals and shapes and sizes and temperatures and smells and tastes, all of those things.
I saw two buildings that kind of intersected. To me, it looked somewhat Asian in architecture.
My speculation is that it was one of those rides, you know, like in Disneyland.
End your sessions and return to sanctuary, and when you're ready, begin preparing your session summaries.
An hour has passed. The viewing session is over. The group now has 30 minutes to complete their written notes and sketches. When they are finished, Morehouse will review the summaries with the beacon.
It goes on to say that there were shops and stores that bordered on a very large green space, a park or a garden of some sort. So a large park or something. Were you near a park?
Right, we were at one point. We were near Echo Park.
Okay.
The next day, Morehouse will retrace the entire route and compare the remote viewer's sketches to what the beacon would have passed along the way. Since there is no accepted scientific methodology to test remote viewing, the accuracy of the sketches and written descriptions will be the gauge of success.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow.
Will any of the sketches and descriptions match? Will this case be judged proof positive? The answers at the end of the show.
Stylistic flames. Those flames were drawn by Jason. And look at that.
In a moment, the final results of our investigations. Which case do you think will test proof positive? Alien abduction, remote viewing, a haunted firehouse. Only one of these cases passed the proof positive test. But which one? Gary Lowry, a retired arson investigator, claims to have been the victim of ongoing encounters with aliens since the age of 16. Over the years, he's collected evidence that he hopes can finally verify his story.
These things are coming and doing things to you, and then your peers or the jury, they don't want to believe you that something's happening to you.
Gary provided 3 pieces of evidence to proof positive. A tiny wire-like chip, which he said had been implanted in his hand. A hard fluorescent material scraped off his bedroom wall. And the residue of an oily liquid that seemed to ooze from a tiny puncture wound on Gary's body. We took the evidence to Seal Laboratories in Los Angeles for detailed analysis using state-of-the-art technology. First, the items were placed in a vacuum chamber and examined with an electron microscope. Inside the chamber, computer sensing elements determined what chemicals might be found in the samples.
The computer is programmed so that for each element, the same element shown on the screen will show where the peaks are supposed to be. And the height of each peak tells you the amount of that element.
Following examination with the electron microscope, the samples were then transferred to an infrared spectroscope.
The carbon, oxygen, or whatever, how they are arranged or how they are put together in 3 dimensions is what determines what the material is. The infrared spectroscopy will give you insight into how these things are arranged, and that will start identifying the actual material.
The first of Gary Lowry's specimens to be examined was the object thought to have been implanted in his hand.
The chemical composition shows that it's protein, it's from human body, it has the body salts, which is dried up also. So combining all that material, you can say it's a black or dark dried up body fluid. It's a combination of sweat as well as skin or tissue from the body as well. There's nothing unusual about the sample. It doesn't appear to be any extraterrestrial type material.
Next to be analyzed, the dry fluorescent material scraped from Gary's walls.
Again, using 2 different techniques, we found materials which are similar to calcium carbonate, titanium oxide, and some organic material, which is primarily ester in this case. It's all normal, standard mixture of several things. Some of these organic matters do fluoresce under light, and therefore it could be just a small chip of fluorescent paint. Most of the composition we have analyzed and identified to be common earthbound materials.
Finally, the oily, foul-smelling fluid. Gary preserved some of the liquid on a piece of cotton gauze. This third sample turned out to be more complex to define than previous samples.
It's a combination of organic materials that are not commonly identifiable. And in this case, we are seeing all the peaks which are typical of these carbon, oxygen, hydrogen type compounds, but we cannot identify each one of them to tell you, just like we did the other samples, that they are skin or they are paint or whatever. At this point, I will say it's inconclusive. I would not say it is positive or negative.
The final conclusions for Gary Lowry's evidence? 95 to 98% explainable. But these results are based on comparisons to substances known to exist on Earth. Before the testing, Gary Lowry actually predicted such an outcome, and he was ready with an answer.
There are only so many elements in the periodic chart, and it's not like if we go to some other solar system, we're going to discover some totally new substance. So if it's something that's metal or chemical, they're going to have similarities to what is here.
In other words, Gary Lowry stands by his story. Perhaps in the future, he'll collect another piece of evidence that will finally verify his claims. Until then, this case cannot be classified proof positive. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, many people are convinced that Fire Station 8 is haunted. More than 30 firefighters have come forward and shared their chilling accounts with the fire chief.
I believe 100% that this station has a ghost.
So do the ghost hunters who have investigated. But the only hard evidence that can be scientifically tested are these photographs of spirit orbs, taken by the South Florida Ghost Team using the same digital camera. We brought the evidence to Rand Molnar at Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, California.
I'm using different image processing algorithms to look at edge detail, try to modify contrast, try to find some things that you couldn't see if you were just looking at the image with the naked eye.
One by one, the photos are subjected to highly sensitive computer analysis. Molnar is looking for any variance in shape. Perfect circles usually mean one thing: camera flare or lens flare.
It's not camera flare, it's not lens flare. That's what I suspect whenever I see anything round, but in this case it has way too much detail and texture and a change in luminosity for it to be just standard lens flare.
So if it's not camera flare or lens flare, could the luminescent orbs really be proof positive that Fire Station 8 is haunted?
It's a very interesting anomaly, but I don't think it's necessarily unexplainable. I would say because of the perfect symmetry of the circle that we're looking at some kind of a camera defect that's producing through the in-camera flash a small slight image that has some sort of texture and detail to it. So it's not the classic flare off a light source in the interior, but it's image forming from the camera flash itself.
In the end, Molnar could not say with 100% certainty what caused the orbs. But while the photographs are not proof positive, you'd have a hard time convincing 30 different firefighters that their station isn't haunted. Former CIA agent David Morehouse claims he has perfected a psychic spying technique called remote viewing. He says he can teach it to anyone.
Exactly what remote viewing is. You have an ability to go into an altered state and to see another human being or anything else, or a person or a place or a thing distant in space-time, and to gather information about that.
To test Morehouse's claims, we devised a difficult exercise. 12 trained remote viewers were instructed to psychically locate and describe the activities of a designated beacon target. For our test, the beacon was driving a motorcycle through the streets of Los Angeles.
The viewers never knew that there was a motorcyclist involved. They never knew whether it was male or female.
Sergeant Rhett Price of the California Highway Patrol observed the test.
I have an open mind, and I was looking at it as a 50-50 proposition that, there's some possibility that this will work out.
When the session was completed, Morehouse reviewed the sketches and written summaries with the beacon.
That's definitely it. Out of the 12 viewers, 9 of the remote viewers indicated that the beacon was female, which was in fact accurate. A number of the viewers described the beacon with dark clothing. The beacon, in fact, had Levi's on with dark leather boots and a leather jacket. One of the viewers had a very uncanny description, which was the beacon as a short female with blonde hair tied back, which the beacon did have the hair tied back in a bandana, and then the motorcycle helmet on over the top of the bandana.
Later, Morehouse and several of the remote viewers retraced the beacon's route, comparing it to the sketches.
There's this pattern.
This is the only way to measure accuracy.
Right.
According to Morehouse, studies indicate that 4 or 5 major hits should be considered extraordinary. Right away, there's a match at a location known as Echo Park.
You can put the tents right in position, right with the fountain, and the tree next to the fountain, and the pathway around the fountain. Yeah, that'll all work really, really good right there. Look at that. Wow.
Perfect.
It's just an incredible feeling to visit this place that I've actually been to before but didn't recognize during the session.
This is really amazing, really amazing. I've never been here before in my life, at least not physically. It kind of gives me goosebumps.
Continuing along the route, Morehouse spots another match.
There you can see the Capitol Records.
Capitol Records.
Which you sketched, Dan. And see why you started getting that kind of Well, that's why you started. It didn't transfer in here, but you're scalloped in your original sketch. Yeah, very famous Hollywood landmark.
Another remote viewer sketched the spire atop the building.
Well, I had just a flash of a strange, odd shape, but it was so distinct. I just wrote it down, but it was separate from whatever it was attached to. I knew it was part of a structure on a structure. So until we were driving today on the freeway, we realized what it was. Capitol Records.
Morehouse and the group covered the entire 15-mile route. There were several sketches that didn't match anything, but there were quite a few that did. A tunnel the target went through. A Y-shaped overpass she drove across. A famous concert hall she passed by.
I sketched the life form. The person.
One match, in particular, surprised even Morehouse.
There are a few things that really shake me up or shock me, but it was really, really interesting today to see one of the viewers pull up a sketch that matched a t-shirt that was on a PA. And that PA happens to be the PA that was standing in front of the beacon adjusting a camera, and that beacon is looking and staring right straight at that particular shirt. It was very powerfully done.
Does remote viewing really work? There's no statistical method to judge the success of these remote viewers, but they did come up with at least 12 major hits, more than double what Morehouse had hoped for. Those numbers were more than enough to turn an impartial observer into a believer.
I have no concept of how this actually works. It's amazing to me. I mean, there was no way they knew what was going on here or where this person was going to be going. It kind of takes you away from the skeptical side a little bit and gives you more of that belief in the fact that the remote viewing technology is something that works.
I'm Amanda Tapping. Join me next time for 3 more cases of the paranormal. Only one will test. Proof positive.